Next up, we have a dear friend. You've already been introduced to him, Terren Peizer. He is the first recipient of the Future of Humanity Award. He's absolutely brilliant. He's built a bunch of companies, given away more money than anybody, probably the top 0.1% of the world. But what you might not know about him is he is also going to be the best man at my wedding. So thank you for being such a great friend and a mentor, an incredible human being. And Terren is going to teach us how to fish. So thank you for being here, Terren.
Thank you, Brian.
Of course.
Quick question. How many here, raise your hand, how many here are not a dear friend of, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I now feel really special. Actually, last night when Brian told me I was getting an award, I didn't know what the name was, etc. And when he started, he says the award first, and then the person. When he said the Lifetime Achievement Award, I cringed. But I was relieved when Rick won that, because otherwise it means I'm old as fuck.
Thank you.
And you are old as fuck. He's 3 years older than I am. Anyway, I don't know why I'm speaking today. I can't even spell AI. One thing I do know, that my intelligence is very artificial. You can laugh louder. All right, now. So anyway, I have no, they put my name up. They asked me for a picture. I said, I don't do pictures. I can't take selfies. They asked me for a slide deck. I said I wouldn't know how to do it. And I'm glad they at least spelled my name right. So what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about something I couldn't pronounce last night after quite a few drinks. Philanthropreneurial and don't laugh. Philanthropreneurship. And we'll talk about that. What does that really mean? I mean, again, I don't know much about AI. I mean, I know probably as much as the least knowledgeable person in this room. I'm a believer in it, obviously. I'm a big investor in Ahura, and I encourage everyone else to. Okay, Brian, I finally said it, okay? I don't, as actually Rick came up to me on the way out this morning and said, I heard you were holding court last night, like to the wee hours. And he said, I thought you were supposed to be this quiet guy. I said, no, I just don't talk about business. I don't talk about my companies. I don't talk about money. I don't talk about that stuff. But otherwise, I'm crazy, which anyone who was there last night knows. But so let's talk about philanthropy. Philanthropy, unbeknownst to most people, is not about giving money. In fact, the real definition is anything but giving money, but it's evolved into giving money. Philanthropy is, or philos and anthropy, is the love of humanity. Now, I know nothing about AI, but I know a lot about humanity. And that's what happens when you turn 65. Don't agree with me. I look younger than 65. All right. So let me tell you about me and philanthropy. And it really involves entrepreneurship. When I was young, I'll repeat some of the things Brian said last night because I never talk about it. And Brian, thank you for telling everyone about my private life. When I was 24, I was the highest paid person on Wall Street, next to one guy, Michael Milken. And I made a hell of a lot of money at a very young age. I started at Goldman Sachs in 1981 when I was 21, and then became partners with Michael Milken. But I made a lot of money, and I thought the only reason, and it was so unusual back then, there was no technology, there was no crypto, there was no internet, there was no AI. It was you start at the bottom and you work your way up. So I thought I was lucky, and I was very spiritual. I still am very spiritual. And I thought the only reason I made so much money at such a young age was because I was meant to give it away. So I gave all my money away. And as Brian implied last night, I think he kind of said it, the only, I believe, and it's in the Bible, the only true act of charity is that which is anonymous. So literally, and for some, well, not everyone, no one knows me here, but I have a little condo on the beach in Los Angeles. I really shunned all the accoutrements of wealth my whole life, except now, just recently. But I really believe that every time I gave all my money away, it would come back to me. And literally, I was broke. And everyone, because I was really good at what I did, everyone threw money at me. They had no idea I was broke, because I gave all my money away anonymously. I did this 3 times. Then the liquidity crisis occurred, I did it twice, and the 3rd time the liquidity crisis occurred, and the market took all my money. And I was cashed out, margin calls, even though I wasn't in violation, but the banks, in a clause on margin agreements, have the ability to always take their capital back. So I was faced with a situation where it wasn't my doing, and I was broke. Thankfully, it's really funny. So one bank is selling all my securities, and then I got another bank that didn't know I was broke, but knew me by my reputation, enabled me to start buying securities. And I was buying my securities at the bottom of the market when my other bank was selling them. It was really kind of fascinating. So what I realized over time, so I gave all my money away twice, and then the market took it from me the 3rd time, but I got it back, so I did things like I created at the time, most of the abused mother and children shelters in the country. I funded most of the animal shelters in the country. I saved the gorilla in Rwanda, to say some of the few things I did. So I felt like I was like Robin Hood. I robbed from the rich, the market, and I gave it to other causes. But the problem with that is that I don't believe that I really was helping humanity. I was doing things on a micro level that helped a small segment of humanity, whether it be animals, which are part of humanity, or whether it be people, which is humanity. But I felt that just like the guy who catches a fish and gives it to the villager enables that villager to have dinner. But the guy that teaches the villager to fish enables him to eat for the next year plus. So I said to myself, I don't think I'm really doing a good job of this Robin Hood thing. I'm going to take a different spin. And I don't know, I still think it's very spiritual, and this is what I was meant to do. But I started doing really well in the market. And I took all that money I made in the market, and I started creating companies that improved humanity. And the first 2 companies didn't go so well. And I'll tell you about an important lesson in entrepreneurship after I run through a little bit of the companies I've built and their social impact on humanity. But it was actually through a company that had nothing to do with humanity that I recognized how to successfully build a company, and how to put a management team together, and how to scale a business. And it was a company called, some of you guys probably have heard of it, Cray, the supercomputing company. How many of you have ever heard of Cray, the supercomputing? Wow, that's surprising. Of course, as I get older, there's fewer hands. But Cray I bought from Silicon Graphics for nothing. Zero. Essentially zero. I didn't put any money down. Essentially zero. It was just sold to Hewlett-Packard for about $1.5 billion. But I learned through Cray how to do this. And then I said to myself, okay, now let's go out and better humanity. So there are several companies, so a lot of you, and you know who you are, have asked me today, what's your favorite company? What's your passion? And I said, I love all my kids the same. Some of them are older than the others. Like my first two companies, one was the pioneer in mental behavioral health. The government says mental, industry calls it behavioral. I say mental behavioral health. We were the first, in 2007, we were the first virtual telehealth behavioral health care company. We started with pilots, which some of you guys know. You start with pilots and they grow, et cetera. We started with a pilot with Aetna, Cigna, Centene, et cetera. And only 10 years later, as Brian was mentioning earlier, there's a long time. It doesn't happen in 3 years. In over 10 years' time, we started scaling. And in 2020 and 2021, we were the darling of the healthcare industry. And I'll get more to that. We were growing 100% a year. We were at 90 million of revenue, 30 million of EBITDA, and we were flying. I'll get to that story in a second. Let me talk to you about some of the other companies. Another one was at the start, so OnTrack I started 20 years ago. Another company that Brian referenced last night, the first real true improvement and the real first true drug to treat Parkinson's. And those that he mentioned it last night, levodopa. If you take levodopa, you have Parkinson's, it turns into dyskinesia, and then you got real problems. It's the end game. If anyone has never seen the movie Awakenings, I highly recommend it. How many of you have seen the movie Awakenings? I recommend everyone watch that movie. It's the story of how levodopa was created. Anyway, what also came in a clinical study was reversing biological age. It has never been shown in any clinical study in a medication to reverse biological age, and it reversed, as Brian mentioned last night, it was 4 years in 6 months. And yes, I do take the drug, and I'm waiting for it to kick in. But then there's a company called Verde, which Brian referenced yesterday. And so BioV was a work that I started following the science in 1995. Verde bioresins is, now this is weird, not in the Walsh-Harris definition of weird, but Verde, good, someone follows politics in the room. In Verde, I founded it 4 years ago. Provided, oh, and I should mention, I put all my, not all the capital, I put most of the capital in until the company's in a position to accept third-party capital. But in Verde Bioresins, I put 100% of the money in throughout its life. I own 100% of the company. But it's only been a 4-year, I founded it 4 years ago, and we're scaling already with companies like FedEx, Reynolds, consumer goods companies like Nestle, Mars, et cetera. Anyway, that is the first plant-based, compostable, recyclable, biodegradable plastic. But what's special about it, well, that in itself is special, but what's special is we sell the resins, and it's not a new technology. We drop it in to anyone's manufacturing process. They don't have to change anything on their end. It's just like they're buying plastic resins, polyethylene, polypropylene, and our product is, I love this, polyethylene. It's a great name. And anyway, that's scaling. And so the fancy thing about it is it could be used in all manufacturing processes, including injection molding of durable goods, which is 50% of the 600 billion plastics industry. So it's an exciting company. Next on the list, Brian references, well, I have 30 seconds. Maybe Brian, can I go, what?
I'll give you extra time.
Okay. The next company is C Polar. Now, C Polar is also, you're going to be reading a lot, you'll be reading a lot about Verde, you'll be reading a lot about C Polar. C Polar is being rolled out throughout the world right now. C Polar is about 5 years in the making, and it came from a polymer that, think about back to the COVID days. The transmission, airplanes, schools, hospitals, and hospitals, as we know, it's trouble, tuberculosis, et cetera, and so on. But C Polar developed a polymer, you could put it on anything, that perfectly inactivates all pathogens. Not 99%, 100%. Inactivates all pathogens. So if you put it in the the HVAC, so you put it in the drapes, you put it in the bedding, you put it anywhere, you won't have any pathogen transmission. Now this is a big deal. And so I'm excited about that company too. I love all my children. The first two are going off to college. These are kind of going to high school, and they're kind of graduating early. The next one was, I like this one too, B New Fuels. It takes shingles. Now, I know you're going to find this hard to believe, but shingles is one of the most toxic things in a landfill, and you can't get rid of them. There are 11 million tons of shingles deposited in landfills every year. We have a solvent that in a matter of 20 minutes reduces the shingle to high-grade diesel fuel. What's interesting about that, we're moving the company down to Puerto Rico. That's where I spend most of my year. And the interesting thing is the government's going to build our plant and facility at their cost. Why? Because during Hurricane Maria, the biggest problem as a result of the hurricane is they had no diesel fuel. So we're going to make a whole supply in case there's a hurricane again like that or similar. And this way we'll provide diesel fuel to the island. But this is, again, it's a renewable fuel. We get rid of the toxicity of the shingle, but we create a clean, high-grade diesel fuel. It also, another byproduct is fiberglass, but that's a whole new other story. I could go on. There's several more companies, but whether it's one of my companies, GoVine, it's basically it's a health insurance company. It's helping the underprivileged and those that don't have insurance to get health insurance and navigate the healthcare system, which if I got on a whole other subject about navigating the healthcare system, it's one of the biggest problems that the challenged population has in America. So we help them with that. It's growing incredibly, and it should be within the year, should be the best in the industry at what it does. Another one is, which Brian referenced last night, and then I want to get back to the story of entrepreneurship. The other one that Brian referenced last night, but he said it was me. It wasn't me, it was my company. What's really going on, and if you read the business news, credit card debt is spiraling out of control. The problem is people don't realize what they're paying in interest. And there are all kinds of, yeah, we'll restructure your debt, we'll lower your interest rate, but what we're doing that's so special. So people are, by the way, people are paying about 250% interest. These are people that don't have money. These are people that go bankrupt because of their credit card debt. Well, we created a new technology that enables to take down their interest costs and their principal to about 10% of all their debt and bring their interest rate down to normal market rates. This is going to change a lot in the country for the underprivileged. So I'm excited about that one too. But let me just get back, and I'll finish with this. just because this, I know it sounds easy. I rattled off these companies. I'm all excited about them. They're innovative. They're changing humanity, improving humanity. But it's not easy. I've been very fortunate. When I moved to Puerto Rico, and in case people are wondering, well, how do you manage all this? When I moved to Puerto Rico, I got CEOs in every one of my companies. So I'm starting to slow down a little bit. I'm now only working 18 hours a day. But it's not all cookies and cream. On Track, which in 2020, 2021 is worth $2.2 billion. And I do own the majority of these companies. In some cases, 100% of the companies. But On Track was at $2.2 billion, high flyer, growing 100%, doing $90 million revenue, $30 million of EBITDA. And then 2 national health plans pulled the plug on us. One, because they had their internal compliance problem, which was Aetna. And 2, Cigna, which they wanted to bring it in-house. It was so effective, they wanted to bring it in-house. And to this day, we're the only ones in the industry that do what we do. And in a nutshell, how it's so important is we target the intersection of chronic disease, cardiovascular, pulmonary, et cetera, with mental behavioral health disease. And that population, believe it or not, their treatment, and well, this isn't hard to believe, their treatment and care avoidant. The magic of the company is, first of all, we target that population. That population is responsible for 40% of the total medical spend in this country. Now just think about that. If you could solve for that, what are you going to do to medical costs throughout the country? So we have solved for that. We're able to identify we were the first ones using AI in the healthcare space. We are able to identify treatment and care avoidant patients because they don't present themselves to the healthcare system. So we identify those people, and then we have the ability to enroll, and this is the important part, engage and change, alter their behavior of their mental behavior. We arrest the mental behavioral health quotient, and we get them care for their chronic disease. It's a big deal. And thankfully, so the stock crashed, everything, the company looked like, that's it, we're done. Now this is 20 years work of mine. Since then, of course, I've been providing the company with a lot of capital. I think since then, I provided the company with $40 million of capital. And the interesting thing is, just to show you that, first of all, there's no elevator straight up to the top. You go, just like I failed my first few companies, you learn by your failures. You learn what you can and apply it to your next opportunity. But in On Track, I didn't give up. I knew the product was right. No one had it. The industry, the problem with me was we were just too early. I plowed capital back in, and it's going to be a happy ending. In the next 2 years, I believe, this isn't the company saying it, I believe that in the next 2 years, we'll do twice the revenue we did at our highs and be twice as profitable. And I think at this point, we've already saved about 20,000 lives. Over the next 2 years, we'll be at a rate of saving 100,000 lives a year. And I'm hoping that it'll be 1 million soon. So with that, I'll conclude. I'm sorry I took you 8 minutes over. Oof. Sorry, Brian. Anyway, what? I can do Q&A. Anyway, I'll take any questions or anything. Yes, sir. By the way, give it up for Rob. It was a great presentation.
How do you find your CEOs? What's your filtering process?
That's a good question. I always have a strong bench. I'm always cultivating my management teams. I always have searches in place, because you can't control their lives, and you don't know when they want to resign, and you don't know when they're burnt out, or you don't know when they're going to get a divorce and they're going to do this and that and the other thing. So I always have searches going for all my companies. But interestingly, the ones that have survived this long, in my companies, if they want another challenge or they want to get into another opportunity, I rotate my management. It's not only CEOs, it's CFOs and even chief marketing officers and or commercial officers. But I think it's important that you always are looking to improve your team, and you're only as strong as your bench. My opinion. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Where's your mom?
I don't know.
There you go. Hi, Mom. Okay.
So when you have an idea in your head, what's your process of validating whether it's good or not?
That's a good question. Thank you, because I left that part out. So since my goal is to rob from the rich, the market, and create and plow it, I take all the profits of my trading, and we're talking about a lot of money, and plow it all, 100%, into my companies. So how do I pick a company? How do I pick an idea? All my companies started, except one, all my companies started with the thought, what is the industry doing? How are they addressing this problem? And it's not being addressed. And then I look at another. When the industry goes left, I go right. If I find something that could address the problem, and I do extensive searches for IP and things of that sort, you're not going to create or solve a solution by doing what the crowd is doing. You're only going to create value if you do go the other direction. And each one of my companies, except one, I went the other direction. And you go till you can't. And if you have a new idea of solving a problem, you'd be surprised how many people want to be a part of it. And that's also very helpful with getting management. So I really just look, I didn't have any idea that I would be able to solve the plastic problem. But it's, and I'm not saying it's solved, because it's a $600 billion market. We address half of it. For us to scale, I mean, we're going to have plants all over the world. We're just rolling out right now and scaling. But I'm happy with that, because it's only been 4 years. But anyway, that's how I come up with, if someone tells me a problem, I will come up, or I don't, I will research it to hell to come up with an alternative. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Oh, sorry. Luke, you first.
I have a question about with what you learned from AI here, and obviously your knowledge on it, and the way you built businesses in the past. What information do you have for us for how you think building businesses are going to change because of it? I mean, is this whole game different in your opinion?
I'm not that smart. I don't know what I don't know. So, and I think a constant thing we've heard this week is we don't know. That's what we heard the last 2 days. We don't know. Well, you know what? I'm not going to waste a lot of time thinking about it until you know, right? I only have so much time in a day.
So, two-part question. One, obviously amazing life, Terren. What would you say are the lessons, though, of teaching yourself to fish, especially for a room full of entrepreneurs? And then, like these amazing companies that have been successful, are certainly at the path to being immensely successful, what are the companies that weren't? And in that context of teaching yourself to fish, what did you learn there? So a little bit more specific to what you
Do you have an hour? There are a lot of things that, so it's a decision tree. To get to the earlier question, it's a decision tree. I go different direction than the industry. Until I hit a dead end, I keep making a right turn, a left turn, right turn. But a lot of them get cut down in the first few innings. They're not yet failures, they just didn't amount to anything. And for all the ones that have amounted to something, and I have roughly, depending on how you define it, 8 or 9 companies that better humanity, and I have a lot of big investments where I provide companies all their capital, but I wasn't involved in the idea. Like I'm a big investor in Ahura. I have no involvement I mean, I do give Brian whatever little bit of knowledge I do have, but he doesn't listen. So what did I learn from the failures? What I have learned, and you probably have gleaned it from my earlier view that I only made money to give it away, is that maybe I'm a little idealistic. Maybe I'm too much of an optimist. Maybe I'm too stubborn when someone tells me no way. So what I've learned over time is don't listen to anyone. Put your own money in. Prove it or don't. I mean, when I put money in a company, I keep putting more and more and more because I keep seeing a green light, green light, green light. When I put money in a company and I see a dead end, I don't put any more money in the company. So the amount of capital I blew, and the way I look at capital is how much capital I have to help other companies that'll help humanity. And the funnier thing is, I don't sell stock in any of my companies. I just keep going and going, and I'll die probably with no cash because, well, at some point I'll stop putting it in the companies and I'll do okay. But it's a constant work for me. So, yes.
So what drove you to create this reversing value aid thing, and what's the name of it? Where can I buy it?
It's called NE 3107, and 3107 is my birthday backwards, July 31st. It was unexpected. The reverse. So what's interesting is it showed tremendous result in an Alzheimer's study. Tremendous, best results ever in an Alzheimer's study. The problem was in their phase 3 study, it was during COVID, and it was hard to accrue patients for the study. And we switched CROs, clinical research organizations. We switched CROs, and the CRO is in southern Florida. And we found weird results not consistent with our phase 2 study. What we found was a tremendous amount of fraud existed during COVID and subsequent to COVID, where heads of clinics, and they were all related, the clinics were all related to each other, they were paying patients that weren't qualified and didn't meet the inclusion-exclusion criteria, paying them to be a patient, and they didn't have Alzheimer's. So it just ruined the study, and it's really caused a problem for the company. But they're now doing the Parkinson's study, and the Parkinson results are just lights out. But what we found is neurodegeneration, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, is the result of neuroinflammation. And we solve for inflammation. We hit the holy grail of inflammation. And it's something called extra signaling regulated kinase 1-2, and it then snowballs and becomes NF-kappa B. And the miracle of this drug is and pharmaceutical companies have been striving for many decades to figure out how do you regulate or inhibit ERK. And all pharmaceutical companies always want to bind to something, be it an antagonist or an agonist. And they said, well, how do we do this? And every pharmaceutical company can never get out of safety studies because ERK is the operating system of a cell. And the miracle of our drug, and this is a miracle, is it inhibits ERK's what happens is ERK gets hyperactivated, and that creates the negative inflammation. And what we're able to do is inhibit ERK's hyperactivation, but we maintain its homeostatic function. And that is just unbelievable. But what we found is that we can impact any age-related disease. And so we measured, it's called a Horvath score, we measured biological age in an Alzheimer's study. And that's the result we got. But of course, the FDA doesn't have an indication for anti-aging. But any age-related disease, we have an effect on it. Now it's unfortunately, biotech is so hard. I mean, it takes so much capital invested over such a long period of time to get an uncertain result. I don't recommend anyone investing in biotech. You're playing with fire. Yes? One more question. What? Spark Neuro?
I think you should look into it because they are they're creating products for monitoring.
I can't really hear you. There you go.
Oh, wow. I
There you
feel
go.
so powerful. So Spark Neuro, they're creating AI tools for monitoring the health of a brain.
Oh, so I am a big investor in the space.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I invest. So you've heard of Neuralink, which is Elon Musk's company. Mm-hmm. Well, the top guys from Neuralink left. Mm. They formed another company called Science. Mm. And I'm the lead investor in Science, which is it's brain-computer interface. And it's a chip in your brain using AI functionality to bring back, whether it's vision, whether it's a lot of things that relate to the retina and the brain. But it's actually ahead of Neuralink. But it doesn't get the publicity because it's Elon Musk.
But who wants to put a chip in their brain right now while you're, trying to test the efficacy of your product and look for a suitable...
Speak up.
Even with the microphone?
Yeah, you could still have to speak up.
Oh my. So not everybody wants to put a chip in their brain.
No, by the way, so there have been safety studies. It's really, you put pacemakers in you, you put other things in you. It's actually very safe, and there's ways of mitigating any risk with it. But it is something you'll be reading about, and about my company, Science, is in the future. Anyway, thanks everyone.
Guys, let's hear it. Can we do a picture?
Oh.
What an encyclopedic knowledge of every one of his companies. And except for one thing, to correct him, he told me I should cut my hair shorter and shave my beard. So there are things that I listen to you on. Ahura's doing a lot better. I do listen to him on Ahura as well on all sorts of things. Guys, let's hear it one more time for Terren. He's an incredible human being that's dedicated his entire life to make humanity better. So we were apparently supposed to be out of this room at 6, and it's like 6:05 now. But I thought that we should all be able to ask some questions and get to know Terren a little bit better, because he doesn't do this very often or ever.